Hey everyone, and welcome to another edition of Wordfence Office Hours. Give us just a second while we get all of our technology up and running. Closing out some windows so I don't hear myself. This is always a load of fun in that first few moments when you're going live and it's like, okay, is everything working? Are we live streaming? And then you see yourself talking 10 seconds ago. So it's a little disconcerting. So bear with me and my little GoPro face that I have as we are getting started. I'm really excited that you are here with us again. This is June 23rd, and we are going to be looking at a vulnerable plugin and looking at how to fix that with some secure coding practices. We have a guest on today, Gall, who you've probably, if you've been here with Office Hours over the last few weeks, you may have chatted with him. Because he joins us in the chat with Tim Cantrell, one of our customer service engineers, who is very active in chat this morning. Thank you to all of the early birds who showed up early to let us know that you were here. If you've been on Office Hours before, let us know that in the chat. If you are a returning guest here, we would love to know if you are getting value from Office Hours. Is this helping you understand your WordPress security? Also, let me know, or let us know where you're coming from. I see a few friends. Robert, our friend from Germany, is waving to us saying hello. And we have some friends from Portugal and Cyprus, from all over the world. WordPress is such an amazing ecosystem, isn't it? Because we have people from all over the world powering the web using WordPress and hopefully securing those WordPress installations with Wordfence. So we're really excited to see everybody joining us. So today, like I said, we have Ram with us, Gall, and Chloe is going to join. Chloe Chamberlain is going to join us as well. She's one of our threat analysts here. She and Ram are an amazing duo, finding vulnerabilities, working with developers of different plugins and themes, and helping them get those patched, and helping WordPress stay safe all around the board. So we'll get started in a couple of minutes, but I had a couple of announcements that I wanted to just share with you. So first of all, this is, of course, we're using Zoom to live stream our little meeting here to YouTube. You know, Zoom obviously has been in the news quite a bit. It is not necessarily a place where we want to share like personally identifiable information. Obviously, we're live streaming this to YouTube, another public forum. So please, if you're in the chat, no sharing of personal information. If you have specific questions that is very relevant to your site particularly, really important that you not share that information in the chat. Write to feedback@wordfence.com and put office hours into the subject line so that we know that your question is related to the content shared on office hours, and we will answer that in a more secure channel. Obviously, email is still not the most secure channel, so but it's much more secure than this public forum. This is an educational forum. Now we're doing this because we're going to a bunch of WordCamps and hanging out with all of our WordPress friends around the world. And with everything going on in the world, we realized we had to switch things up. We wanted to still stay in contact with you and see what's going on with you, how we can help you with your WordPress installations and WordPress security specifically. And this is the best way to stay informed. So we took it a step further and started organizing some of this content so that it is generally helpful to anyone who happens upon this, no matter where they're coming from. So that's what we're here for. Now, if you are really into WordPress security, if this kind of stuff really gets your blood pumping, we are hiring. We have a few roles open at Wordfence right now. If you're into PHP coding and you want to work with a team that likes to have fun and really wants to make a difference in the world and helps people do so through security, we have a few jobs open. You can go to wordfence.com, scroll down to the bottom and go to careers, and you can see those roles that are available. We have a couple of PHP developer positions open, and we also have a QA analyst position open for quality assurance. We put a very very strong emphasis on creating quality software. And so that QA role has a very important role in our organization. Ram also was a QA analyst. And it's interesting because not only was he able to QA the software that we were developing, he was really good at QAing other people's software as well. And sort of he's sort of transitioned into this role of a threat analyst as well, and finding vulnerabilities, and some of which he's going to show you a little bit about what he does with that today. So another question that came up last week, and we've done a few of these office hours programs over the past few weeks. And last week we cleaned a hack site using Wordfence and showed you basically how you can use the software to clear a hacked site, and gave you some tips on doing so. And someone had made a comment about, why doesn't Wordfence just clear the malware? Why don't you just automate that clean? Other software companies just, clear the malware for you, antivirus programs that just wipe malware out. Well, that kind of goes against the philosophy of what we're trying to do. We are about empowerment. Education and these office hour programs are very important to us in that framework of empowerment. We want to give the tools to you to make the right decision. And if you aren't actually looking at what kind of malware is on your site, and it's just wiping it out for you, you're not empowered. Another thing that's really important to consider is, if there's malware on your site, there's something wrong. Malware should not be on your WordPress site. So finding those vulnerabilities and fixing those vulnerabilities to make sure that you're not finding malware automatically on your site is incredibly important. So if you want to take a look at that video of how you can use Wordfence to clear malware from your site, it is a manual process, and that's what we recommend, and actually looking at what is going on with your site. That video is on our channel, so you can subscribe to our channel. So you can do that with links below, and make sure you subscribe to that. Also, make sure you subscribe to our mailing list. If you go to wordfence.com, down on the bottom, there's a link to subscribe to our mailing list. We are pretty clean and clear with what we send out, not a lot of marketing stuff. Mostly we're sending out either educational opportunities like this, or alerts that there is a plugin or a theme or even a core vulnerability that you need to be informed about. We are very committed to sharing information, to education as the first line of defense in any kind of security. Because you can have all of the tools in the world, but if you don't know how to use those tools, if you don't know what those alerts actually mean, they're not as valuable to you. So with all of that, just want to mention that everything we talk about here are vulnerabilities that have been patched, or plugins that have been closed that you shouldn't be using anymore. Basically, if you're keeping your WordPress installation up to date, and just, basically functionally isolating your sites, everything will be good. So with that, hey guys, are you there? Chloe and Ram and Scott? Are you here? There's Scott, my
Hi.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi. Thank you guys so much for coming on today. Very excited to have you here. I'm very excited to see what we've got going on. Is everybody doing okay? How are things in Florida and Pennsylvania? I know how things are in Arizona, Ram. Hot.
Not too bad in PA. A little rainy and humid, but I think it could be worse from what you say about how hot it is there. So I won't complain too much.
Awesome. Great. Well, we're hoping we know what it's probably like in Florida. Chloe, is it hot and humid?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's summer, but we're really grateful that we have this opportunity to kind of bring the team together. And these are the people who make Wordfence what it is. These are the people who make your sites safer. And we are so grateful that you're here with us. We're so grateful that you entrust the security of your sites to Wordfence and to our team. And we hope that the services that we provide are sort of like the whole ball of wax. Not only is it a plugin that resides on your site that protects you with a malware scanner and that firewall, but 3 million people around the world entrust their sites to Wordfence. But there's also this team behind Wordfence that does vulnerability research, that writes firewall rules to protect your sites from intrusion. And very happy to know that Chloe and Ram are joining us, because these are a couple of the most important people on our team who do that kind of research. So with that, Chloe, we're going to be talking about what options update vulnerabilities today, or capabilities checks. Can you talk a little bit about what a capability check is, and why is it important to WordPress? And why is it important to WordPress users to understand these types of vulnerabilities?
Yeah, for sure. So a capability check is essentially a check that verifies that an action can be performed by an authorized user. So for example, if we're looking at a plugin, it's a check to verify that an administrator can update the settings on a given site. It's there to make sure that authorized actions are being performed, and unauthorized users aren't able to perform certain actions. Today, specifically, Ram's going to be looking at an options update vulnerability that is caused by a lack of capability checks and option verification. And so essentially an options update vulnerability is a vulnerability that allows users, typically unauthenticated or low-level users, the ability to update options in the database. And so you're probably wondering what an option is. And so options are like the settings that control your site, and it's settings. And so let me show you real quick on my WordPress site what your settings would look like.
Great.
So over here, can you see my screen all right?
Yeah.
So here is my settings general page. And so I have my site title, my tagline, URL, site address URL, email, membership, if anyone can register, default roles. These are all the settings that can control certain things on your site. And so an options update vulnerability allows lower level users or unauthorized users to change these settings on your site. And one of the common ways attackers use this is to enable registration and make that default as a administrator. And if you want to take a closer look at all your database options, you can go to /options.php. And this is just to look at all the options on your site. And one of the things about options updates is the plugin will not have a prefix for the plugin options, and put that in the update options field so that options can be arbitrary values and option names. So instead of it being, for example, Wordfence _ site key, for example, it would just be, and then dot, the value that the option should be, it would just be option and then value. And so that's one way that, I'm sorry if you can hear my cat scratching in the background. She's trying to get in here. Yeah. So it would be an arbitrary option name and an arbitrary option value that can be updated in the database. And that's in correlation with a lack of a capability check. So unauthorized or lower level unauthenticated users can update those options arbitrarily. And so how prevalent are these? Option update vulnerabilities aren't as prevalent anymore, which is a really good thing. But the fact that a lot of functions are missing capability checks is a pretty prevalent thing today in WordPress plugins and themes. And that's one really important thing to make sure that you have in your plugin functions and actions, so that unauthorized or unprivileged users can't execute those functions and actions. And so it's important to protect those, again, so unauthorized users and unauthenticated users can't execute those actions. Ram and I have found a lot of vulnerabilities recently that have been due to missing capability checks, and it's usually in correlation with an AJAX action. Some of these would include page layer. They had several several AJAX actions that didn't have any capability checks with the functions or the actions, so that lower level users had the ability to update posts and things like that. Another one was due to the use of an isAdmin function instead of using a capability check in WP database reset, which allowed unauthenticated users the ability to reset databases. Some that RAM have found is MapPress maps. There was an XSS vulnerability in there due to, again, a lack of capability checks on an AJAX action. So lower level users like subscribers were able to inject malicious JavaScripts in pages. And I just realized I'm still sharing my screen and you probably don't want to see that. So I'll just turn that off real quick. And another one that RAM has found is WP lead plus X. It was another XSS vulnerability, I believe, due to missing capability checks again. And another one was rank math SEO. It had a missing capability check on a REST endpoint, I believe, and it allowed for privilege escalation due to the ability to update metadata. And so it's kind of similar to the options update vulnerability in a way. But with that, with those details being said, does anybody have any questions before we hand this off to Ram to show you all the juicy details on the back end?
So in a WordPress database, just so that everyone's clear, you have a place for your posts, and then you have a place for your like post information, like post meta, but then there's like an options table, and that's like options for not just WordPress, but for every plugin you have installed?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so if somebody has an option update vulnerability, that's the information that the hacker then gets, or the malicious actor has access to, right? So they're making updates to that particular database table?
Yeah, so the whole WP underscore options table, or if you have a different prefix, that WP will be different. That whole table can be modified. Any of the options, even the ones that aren't the plugin options, if they don't have that prefix in the options update, causing the vulnerability. I think I lost track of what I was saying, but yeah, so basically anything in that table can be modified with most options update vulnerabilities.
Okay. So an option update vulnerability. So if one plugin has a vulnerability and those PHP files are installed on your site and there's an option update vulnerability, they could update options conceivably for any, for the WordPress blog. They can update, you know, whether or not an administrator, you know, who, if someone can subscribe, if someone can, the default subscriber role is administrator, but they can also, like, say, if you have Wordfence installed, they can make option updates to Wordfence options too, conceivably, correct, right?
Yeah.
Okay, correct. So option updates vulnerabilities are really important to understand, because if you have one plugin and it's just like one file, or like when Ram's going to show us just one little piece of code and that isn't there, it could really open up your entire site to these types of vulnerabilities. And we've seen this happen, right?
Correct. Yeah.
We had a couple questions about rank math. I think you mentioned rank math, Chloe. That was patched, that vulnerability, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, a couple people had asked about that.
I got a question if it's up to each plugin writer to implement these capability protocols or capability check protocols on their own. And the answer is yes. Every plugin writer, if you write a plugin, it's your responsibility to make it secure. If you put something out there in the world for other people to use, it becomes your responsibility.
Well, with that, Ram, do you want to start showing us a plugin? What do you have exactly to show us? Do you have a plugin with some issues?
Yes, I do. So the plugin I have is called Hybrid Composer. It's effectively one of many plugins that make it easier to, customize information on your site. It's sort of like a site builder type plugin. The vulnerable version was patched almost a year ago. So if you try to attack this in the wild now, it's probably not going to work. There weren't a lot of people using it at the time, so don't even think about it. But I'm going to show off how such an attack would go, and I'm going to put on my hacking hat. So, all right, let me share my screen. So
You've got your hacking hat on. Nice.
I
I
like it. I
do
like
have
it.
my hacking hat on. Yeah.
Excellent.
I found this cool little website. Now, just so you know, this is on a virtual machine on my local host because that way I can actually show you what's happening in the code. But let's say
Great.
I'm a hacker and I want to register for the site. And find out if it'll let me. Oh no, user registration is currently not allowed. Denied. Well, I just happened to, in my hackery way, run a WP scan on the site and found out that there's a vulnerable version of Hybrid Composer on the site. So I am going to use that to turn on user registration. So I'm going to show you the anatomy of.
What tool are you using here to show us how you're going to be sending code to the server?
So I am using Burp Suite's repeater, which is one of my
Okay.
favorite, and I know that Chloe likes it too. I know that some more elite people will just use the curl command line utility, but
Okay.
I like this because it lets me, you know, try different things really quickly. So I'm going to show you the anatomy of an AJAX request. It's going to be sent to this admin AJAX file. It's going to have an action, which in this case is the AJAX save option. It's going to have an option name, which for this particular AJAX action, these are dependent on the plugin. But for now, we've already discussed options updates, and we've mentioned that if you know the options you want to update and there's a vulnerability that lets you do that, you can just do that. So I've already got the setup to allow users to register. I'm going to send it and see what happens. And I got a 200 OK response. And let's reload this page and see if it'll let me register. And take the hat off. It's a little warm in here. Oh, hey, cool. I can register for the site now. That is just what I was hoping for. But let's say I'm not actually satisfied with this. Let's say that I'm being a sneaky attacker, want more. Maybe I want administrative access to the site. So I'm actually going to show you guys what happens in the code when the attack happens. So I'm going to turn on debugging.
Okay.
I am going to change the option name, which is, and we'll set that to administrative. And let's see what happens when I send that. Oh, and just so you guys know, the things like option name, content, action, those are all called parameters. So anyways, if you look at the code, you'll see the AJAX action being registered. That's that HC AJAX save option. That was what was in the action parameter. And I'm going to skip forward a little bit, and that opens up the HC AJAX save option function. So it's really simple. All it's doing is, updating the option that I sent in the option name parameter to what I sent in the content parameter.
Okay.
You can actually even see what's in the post parameters and how they relate to what's in that request I sent. So
Hey,
I'm
Ram,
going to.
Can you make
Yeah.
Can you make the window just a little bit larger so people can see just a little bit better, or
Sure.
maximize the Burp Suite?
Hold on. Maximize the Burp Suite.
Yeah,
All
if that's
right.
possible.
So I don't know. I don't know if I can zoom in on the text. If that would help.
Yeah, that's okay.
But anyways, so that's what happens in the code when you actually attack a vulnerability of this type. Just as an example. So I'm going to register for the site.
Hacker man, of course.
Well, I mean, yeah. I don't have my power glove, but, and let me check my email. And hey, I have a new user registration. I'm going to set my password to something.
Do hackers use good passwords or do they use predictable passwords?
Oh boy. So from what I have seen, hackers have the worst passwords.
Do they really?
I don't know if this has changed in, you know, recently or not, but every time I've ever actually seen a decoded hacker password, it's always something really simple and lame. So anyways, I just created a user and logged in, and now I'm an administrator and I can do whatever I want. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I think hand it over to Scott.
Time for a quick coffee break, maybe. Okay, thank you, Ram. That was cool. Ram is going to show some more here in a moment. But first, we always like to take a moment to thank you guys for tuning into Office Hours. So like we did earlier, if you just joined in, let us know if this is your first time joining us on Office Hours, or let us know if you've been here since the beginning. We really appreciate you tuning in and learning with us and learning how to protect your site. If you're finding these videos to be helpful and the demonstrations that we're doing like this on Office Hours and the other videos that we have here, please go ahead and hit the like button underneath the video here. Also, you can subscribe if you're interested in more videos and more content like this. We create more of this and we do these live streams typically every Tuesday. And we've been having Chloe on typically, and we brought Ram on. So we'll be bringing other members of the team on, and you would be notified when we are available here on YouTube or whenever we upload new educational videos to our channel. We also like to take a minute to thank our premium subscribers who make Wordfence as powerful as it is. Not only do the premium subscribers make this sort of content possible, like Office Hours, but you also make the features and the protection that we offer possible. This allows us to do the sort of research that both Chloe and Ram do, and it goes a long way in protecting a lot of Wordfence sites. So thanks to all of our premium subscribers and putting your trust into Wordfence and everybody who joined us here today. On the topic of premium, if you're not familiar with the differences between premium and free, I'll give you just a little idea of what you get with Wordfence Premium. So first off, the firewall rules. And these are things that Chloe and Ram and the rest of the team are researching and putting out before your site can be compromised. And these firewall rules get sent out to you automatically and immediately for premium subscribers. And that's as opposed to a 30-day wait for users of the free version. Also included with premium is scan scheduling. And this is awesome if you want to control exactly when or how frequently your site is scanning. This can be really useful if you have a large site, maybe you have a multi-site with a bunch of sites under it and a ton of content to scan, or maybe you have frequent visitors at a certain time of the day and you want to scan around that. Or maybe you just want the scans done for you in the morning whenever you check the site and you can go over everything right then. Either way, it's a great feature to set up and use if you're using premium. Another premium feature, and one of my favorite, is country blocking. With country blocking, you can select any country and block those selected countries from the entire site or from the login form or both of those. So this is something typically that I personally set up on my sites where I'm the only administrator and I'm just logging in from the US and I may block a large number of the other countries from even being able to access the login form and just the login form. And that reduces what you have to rely on with brute force protection. So you can then set your brute force protection a little more strict just for those brute force attempts that you will be seeing, which should be less with country blocking on. And last but not least, my personal favorite feature, the real-time IP blacklist. This is a blacklist full of IPs that we see hitting other Wordfence sites. They might be trying to brute force them or try a specific vulnerability on those sites. So whenever we see this recurring malicious activity from an IP, it's automatically added to the blacklist. This feature is also automatically enabled whenever you install your Wordfence license. So you don't have to do anything there. And it's a great feature because of that, because it prevents these IPs that are on the list from interacting with your site. If, as we know, IPs get switched often and bots will stop using an IP. So if we see an IP isn't doing anything malicious for some time, it's removed from the list. So that takes out some of the work that you have to do blocking and unblocking IPs. So it's a great thing to use. And you can check on that if you're using Premium currently by going to live traffic under the blocked and blocked by firewall. So if you're recording security events only, you may see quite a few blocks made by the real-time IP blacklist there. So definitely check on that. So if you want to be a Wordfence supporter, there's a few things that you can do. And one of those is, of course, purchasing the Wordfence Premium to access the features that I just mentioned, including that real-time IP blacklist. And if you would like to do that, Premium is for one site, $99 for a year. And that will also work on a live site, but also your staging and development site as well, if you have domains for that. So you can protect multiple sites with that one license if they are test sites. If you have multiple sites to protect, you'd be eligible for discounts when you purchase multiple licenses. Or if you wanted to get discounts on a single license purchase, you have the option to purchase for either 2 or 3 years for a single license, and both of those will give you greater discounts. Or lastly, you can also support Wordfence by sharing the information that you're learning here today or from a past office hours episode or from our YouTube channel, where we post some educational videos setting up some different features in Wordfence or Wordfence Central, or going over some different vulnerabilities and compromises. And you can share that with friends and colleagues and other site owners and let them know, how sites are attacked and how they can be better protected going forward. So with that said, I think Ram is going to be giving us a little bit of a demonstration here. Is that right, Ram?
Yep. So I'm going to start out with basically the same scenario. I've reset everything so that HackerMan is no longer an administrator and users can't register, and they're not administrators either. I show you what happens if I try the same attack with Wordfence on. And it's not actually that exciting, which it shouldn't be, because Wordfence should just work and block everything. So
sometimes it's nice to have a site with no excitement, right?
it really is. And I mean, if you want some excitement, go check. If you have Wordfence installed, go check your live traffic, and it will show you all the people that are trying to break into your site. And trust me, almost everyone will have some of that. So registration is not currently allowed. I am going to turn user registration back on and send that request. And this time I get a 403 forbidden, which is what happens when Wordfence detects you doing something you maybe shouldn't be doing. A potentially unsafe operation has been detected. Well, just to make sure, I'm going to see if registration got turned on. And wow, my site is super slow. I should probably run it against fast or slow to see how and why it's slow. But
That's a great idea.
I'll do that some other time.
That is a good idea.
Anyways, but let's pretend that I, as the site owner, decide to turn Wordfence off. Sorry, this is incredibly boring. I should share my screen again, just to show how to turn Wordfence off, I guess. I'm just going to turn the firewall off. And yes, look, I have 113 plugins that I haven't updated. No wonder my site's so easy to hack.
That would be, this is like worst case scenario type of installation, but this is your testing site, right?
This is the site I used to test a lot of vulnerabilities. So there's a reason there's
Gotcha.
113 plugins that aren't updated on there. So I am
Excellent.
going to turn off the Wordfence firewall just to make sure I'm not actually protected. But I'm not just going to do that. I am going to be the responsible site owner, and I heard everyone loud and clear that I should zoom in on this. So here's that vulnerable function. I'm going to update it. And I'm going to use a capability check. Now, there will be a quiz on this later. You think I'm joking. I'm not actually joking. There's going to be a quiz on this later, and there's going to be prizes. It'll be great, but you only get the link to the quiz if you're watching live. So them's the breaks. So I'm going to use a capability check function. It's not the only one, but it's probably the easiest and most common one, and that's called current user can. So user can, and used to be in the old days, you just say, go on, Kathy, what was that?
So current user can, is that a function that is resident within WordPress as a whole?
Yes, it is a WordPress core function. So
okay.
It will only work if WordPress is loaded, which is usually not a problem for most plugins.
Yeah.
But it's really important. It basically asks, what is this user allowed to do?
Okay, so there's another function I think called isAdmin. Could we use that here?
I mean, you could if you wanted me to be able to hack your site. So the isAdmin function only tells you if someone's trying to access an admin page.
Okay.
So see, I know it's kind of hard to see with the burp thing, but you see how that post goes to WP admin Ajax. Yeah. The fact that it's anywhere in WP admin means that isAdmin will let it pass. So don't use isAdmin.
Do we see that fairly often with vulnerabilities where people are using capability check? They're using isAdmin for a capability check instead of the current user can?
We used to. Things have been getting a lot better, and as a whole, the largest WordPress plugins are far more secure than they've ever been.
Okay.
We still occasionally see weird things happening, like using isAdmin to, decide whether or not to show a nonce code, which I think Chloe may have covered in a previous video, and that can still lead to vulnerabilities, but people usually don't use this for capability checks anymore. So
okay,
current user can is the way to go. They used to use administrator, but that's kind of an old way of doing things. It's not recommended. It's actually recommended to choose the specific thing you want to allow. So in this case, since this is an option update, I'm going to pass it what I'm going to call a parameter, which is manage options. So basically what I'm telling the code is if the person who's logged in is actually allowed to manage options, then update the options. Otherwise, I am going to say no hackers allowed. So I'm going to set this breakpoint and show what happens in the code when I try to update something with Wordfence disabled, by the way, but since the plugin's no longer as vulnerable, I shouldn't be able to get it. So I'm going to send that same request. I was able to zoom in on the code. I was not able to zoom in on the burp. Sorry, guys and gals and everyone else. So let's see. Ajax action gets registered. That's not any different, but next it goes to this if current user can manage options. And, I'm not actually logged in as this attacker. I'm just some random dude who's trying to get into your site. And so I don't have a login, and I definitely don't have a login that lets me manage options. So it's going to go straight to that die, no hackers allowed. And let's see what Burp responds with. And oh, hey, no hackers allowed. So I have been thwarted. Wahaha.
Nice.
So there's a bunch of different parameters you can feed to the current user can function. Manage options is the one I use because it's usually the one that only administrators are allowed to do. But there's a bunch of others depending on what you want to allow people to do. And the WordPress.org has a bunch of documentation for anyone who's thinking of becoming a plugin developer or who is a plugin developer, but hasn't learned all of the intricacies of security.
Okay. All right. So like we were talking about before, the options table is something that can be used by any plugin developer to store options for their particular plugin, but it's also everybody's options, right? So right?
Yeah, it is almost everybody's options. Some plugins will have their own tables with other options. I believe we do for one thing. And depending on who the attacker is and how much they know about your site before they actually attack it, they'll usually just go for things like turning all users into administrators when they register. Or another popular one is they'll change the site URL to like an advertising site. So if anyone else goes to your site, they'll be redirected to one of those like, you've been hacked, virus on your computer scams.
Yeah.
Scams.
Yeah. Or your Flash is out of date.
Oh, Flash is out of date is very popular. Yes. And there's also weird push notifications, or they try to get you to solve fake captchas with the little robot.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So if you are a plugin developer, or if you have a site and you have your own custom code plugin that you just have on there just to update some options, no matter what you're doing, if you're touching options, you need to have a capabilities check in there. Otherwise, a hacker is going to find it and probably exploit your customer sites or your site. Or you're going to get an email from Chloe or Ram that they found it, which is something that people should welcome, right? And we've worked with a lot of plugin developers. And what is the kind of response that you get from plugin developers when you find something like this in their code?
So sending the email is always awkward, but it really depends on the plugin developers. I always really appreciate the plugin developers who respond quickly and take security seriously. Honestly, everyone's going to have vulnerabilities in their plugin at some point. Every single plugin is going to have some kind of vulnerability at some point in its lifetime if it has over a certain number of users. It's how you respond to the vulnerabilities that matters. And it's a big part of that is making sure that if you do find a vulnerability like that, you send it to the plugin developer first. It's called responsible disclosure. Give them time to fix it without telling the rest of the world. If they don't fix it, then you can contact the WordPress.org plugins team and they'll try and get in touch with the developer. If they can't, then they'll pull the plugin from the repository. So.
Sure. And if we find a vulnerability like this, we always make sure that a firewall rule goes into effect as soon as we know it exists, don't we?
Correct. It is literally the first thing we do as soon as we verify that there's an unpatched vulnerability that has any like serious implications. Like before we even contact the plugin developer, we make sure that no one can exploit this. And then the next thing we do is contact the plugin developer.
Right. Okay. So premium customers get those rules immediately. As soon as we know anything that's going on, they don't even, if you're a premium customer, you don't even need to think about it. Your site is automatically updated. As soon as we know that there's a vulnerability out there, we make sure that your site is protected immediately. And then free customers will receive those rules 30 days later. But this is part of the responsible disclosure process, is to make sure, first of all, that premium customers are protected. And then we start working with these developers and make sure that any types of vulnerabilities like these are patched. Now, Ram, you have a little quiz for people to see how they've been paying attention, don't you? And we have some prizes.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I think Tim's going to drop that quiz in the quiz link into the chat.
Yeah. Now's the time, Tim, to drop that into chat. And if you've been paying attention to this this code change that Ram just made, you will know the answer. And go ahead and just give it a try. And we'll need your email address, because what we're going to be giving away for the 5 people, the first 5 people who have a that have the correct answer, we're going to contact you and get you a Wordfence shirt. So you too can be styling like those of us on office hours with these Style and Wordfence shirts. So I think the form is into chat now, and we will give you a moment. This is only available to people who are joining us for the live stream. If you're watching this later, just hit that notification bell and subscribe to our channel below. Make sure that you are getting a notification when Wordfence does have a live office hours event, so that you too can join us while we're giving these types of demonstrations. It's always good to be with us when we're live, because you can ask questions. You can see the questions going by in chat as we're giving a demonstration. We have a number of things planned for the future for Wordfence office hours. We were just chatting this morning about a couple of interactive office hours that we have planned coming up, and we will let you know by basically establishing the video and scheduling it as a live stream on YouTube. So if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, you'll get notified when that is happening. But also subscribe to our mailing list, because we're going to let people know. We're doing these scheduled noon every Tuesday, noon Eastern time, and 9 o'clock on the West Coast in the United States. But you'll get notified, so that if the stars are aligned and the times are aligned, that you can jump in and join us here on office hours and ask questions about WordPress security, about Wordfence, and getting the most out of the tool. So go ahead and enter those questions. We're going to close that out at the top of the hour, so you won't be able to answer after that point. So it'll be, again, the first 5 people with the correct answer will get a Wordfence shirt. This is limited to people in the US, unfortunately, because of shipping concerns and whatnot. But we're going to try to hopefully in the future open that up for the rest of the world. So only US answers are going to be able to receive those. So we hope you learned a lot about what the options table is, what an options update vulnerability is, and why capabilities checks are one of the solutions to that. Now, obviously, if you're using Wordfence Premium, your site's going to be protected as soon as we know. But obviously, there's 55,000 plugins in the repo, in the WordPress.org repository. There's also a bunch of paid plugins in the WordPress ecosphere from places like Theme Forest and Code Canyon, and I've even seen themes for sale on Etsy that you could actually buy a WordPress theme on Etsy. I never knew. I thought that was a place for scarves and custom pottery, but no, you can get WordPress themes on Etsy too. So, I mean, one of the beauties of WordPress is that you can plug anything into it. You can theme it any way you want. But of course, making sure that you're sourcing responsibly, that you're getting plugins and themes and code that has been secured is incredibly important. So it's really important to be aware of the types of vulnerabilities that can exist, and just make sure that the plugins that you plug into your site are coming from places that are more reputable, that you know you're getting secure code, because we can't stay on top of every single thing that could possibly be plugged into WordPress. We try to stay on top of the repo, because obviously that's open source and we can download those plugins and take a look at the source code and contact developers when we see that there is an issue. So just, some things to understand. WordPress is really awesome in that it gives you the capability to basically own your content. But with that ownership comes responsibility, and you're responsible for the things that you're plugging into it. And you're responsible for your own site security. It's not something that you can say, turn over, well, my host just takes care of that, or, well, I've got Wordfence and it's just going to take care of that. security is kind of like a table, you know, and if you just have one leg on that table and you push on it a little bit, it topples over. If you only have 3 legs, it's not as sturdy as something that has multiple different parameters securing how that table stands. And so you're going to need tools, and each tool is kind of like a leg of that table. And so Wordfence is one of those things. Making sure that you're using adequate passwords, making sure you're using 2FA, the two-factor authentication that's resident in Wordfence login security, which is both free in the Wordfence plugin, but there's also a standalone login security plugin that's available in the repo as well. Making sure that the plugins that you're putting on your site are of the highest quality. You know, when you put a plugin on your site, you're basically getting into relation, you're taking someone else's code and you're placing it on your site. So it's really important that you understand what you're plugging in, making sure that you're leveraging the tools in the repo to understand what kind of code base, you know, see what other people are saying about that code, see what kind of reviews, see if there's any kinds of alerts to like previous security problems. Is it being actively supported? So all of this are tools that are in your hands, but ultimately security is your responsibility. And we take that very seriously. And that's why we are doing office hours, to educate you so that you understand all of the tools that are available to you and all of the different methods that a hacker or a malicious actor could get into your site. So live events, we're going to be doing this for the foreseeable future, and we've got lots more coming. So make sure you're hitting that subscribe button down below, and also make sure you hit a thumbs up, because the more thumbs up we get, the more data that gives us to management to say, hey, people love office hours, let us keep doing this. So if you are getting something out of this, we need that data to go back to management to say, hey, look, office hours is really helping the WordPress community and we'd like to keep doing this. So please do that. Make sure you're on our mailing list. And also we mentioned, Ram mentioned earlier, Fast or Slow, and that is a new service. It's completely and totally free. If you go to fastorslow.com, go there and check out the new tool that we have provided. It's completely free. You can subscribe to updates on your site speed. And what this does is it is giving you how your site is performing around the world. Now, obviously, you can load up your site in your browser on your computer and take a look at how it's performing for you. But how's it performing for someone on the other side of the world? If you're in the US, how is your site performing for someone in Japan or Australia or the UK? This gives you those kinds of data points that you can see worldwide how your site is performing, since we are now in a global economy. It also gives you a lot of parameters that are fresher than some of the other tools that are out there. So check that out because it's completely free. We want to also thank you for being a premium customer. Your premium subscription gives us the capability not only of doing this, not only of being here weekly to give you the education you need in order to understand your site's security as a whole, but it also funds the research that Ram and Chloe do to make sure that the plugins in the repo are as secure as possible. We kind of provide a QA function for those types of plugins. So you're funding basically making WordPress safer, not just for, you know, the plugin that Ram just showed you, but for other plugins and for plugin developers to be able to see that, oh, well, I've got options that I'm updating on within my plugin. If I secure my plugin, I'm securing the options for multiple plugins. And it also provides that educational component for plugin developers to be aware of these types of vulnerabilities and what hackers are up to. So you're funding all of that. And it also gives you something that no one else has. You are now a security expert because you've been watching Wordfence office hours. You might not feel like an expert. You might feel like, oh my gosh, Ram and Chloe, they know more than I do, and I'm not a security expert. But think about some of the people that maybe you know in your community who have a WordPress site, but they're not aware. You obviously know more than they are. And it's important for you to share the knowledge that you receive. Like, you know, I saw this great video and it helped me understand how a hacker gets into a site, how the code base can really open that up. You should really take a look at it. Just planting that seed in a community member's mind for them to even think slightly about security or thinking about their passwords. We have another video where we talk about password security and how important that is. Planting those seeds, they then go educate themselves. And when we as a community can educate everyone that we know, we make the WordPress community safer. And with WordPress powering over a third of the internet now, it's really important for us as community members to really come together in spreading this information so that WordPress as a platform is more and more secure. Because guess what? When you put a lock on the front door of your community, hackers and malicious actors go someplace else. They go where hackers can get in, and they're going to start turning their attention away from the biggest content management system and maybe someplace else, because we all as a community are coming together and sharing security knowledge. So share this video, share our channel, because we've got tons of educational content that is going to help make all of WordPress safer. And that power is really in your hands. We also have a learning center on the Wordfence site. If you go to wordfence.com/learn, there's tons of information there that can help you not only understand how to get the most out of Wordfence, but WordPress as a whole, and understanding internet security. Like I said, it's not just a plugin. You can't just put a plugin on your site, because if you've got a plugin on one site and then you've got 30 other sites in a cPanel, and one of those has 113 plugins that need an update, like Ram's test site, there's a backdoor, and that one site that has a plugin on it can get compromised because those infections can spread out through that entire hosting account. So really important that you understand the breadth of the education that you need in order to keep everything secure. So what's coming next for Wordfence office hours? We were talking this morning about how popular last week was in terms of showing how to clean up a hacked site using Wordfence. And sometimes those malicious attackers can't get in through any kind of PHP vulnerability. Maybe there's a database vulnerability. Maybe that service provider, that hosting provider, has a vulnerability with their database system, and a hacker gets in just to the database. How do you clean up spam and malware out of your database? So we're going to take a look at that coming up on an upcoming edition of Wordfence office hours. That sounds pretty exciting. What do you think, Chloe? Can you help me out with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we were talking this morning, there's multiple ways of doing that, right? You can download just a text file of your database and clean things that way, but there's multiple ways of cleaning that, aren't there?
Yep. Yeah, there sure is.
Okay. Awesome. Ram, did I miss anything? Is there anything we should sum up about sort of options updates?
Options updates are just one of many possible vulnerabilities. Realistically, capability checks are the big takeaway from this, because pretty much anything that you don't want just a random person visiting your site to be able to change, put it behind a capability check. Even if you don't actually show it in a menu or in, a dialog box, if it accepts input from outside in any way whatsoever, and it's not intended for, site visitors, put it behind a capability check. Because you have no idea what counts as user input. Like headers count as user input. The IP address you're visiting from can count as user input. And if that's, displayed to the administrator or saved somewhere where it'll be displayed to the administrator, you can put a malicious script in there. So you want to make sure that only people that are allowed to actually, save stuff like that can.
Excellent. Great. Scott, any last words from you?
I think you guys hit the nail on the head. Although I think we might have forgot to say that we made a film. So if anybody here has never gotten the opportunity to go to a WordCamp, definitely take a look at the film that we made called Open. And Kathy had a big part in that. Is it open.film, Kathy?
It is open.film.
It
Yes,
really captures what the WordCamps are like. So if you haven't gotten the opportunity to go to one, or you're planning on going to one in the future, definitely check that out. It's really awesome seeing the community like that.
It is really awesome. Yeah, 4 different word camps. I think there were like 30. I've lost count of how many interviews. There were so many different interviews, but I think the story really says it all. And the great fun was the fact that we got so much footage from WordCamp Phoenix that we were pretty big. Had a pretty big role in, and it was definitely a lot of fun, sort of our love letter to the WordPress community. And community is part of what makes WordPress so special. And we are really grateful to all of you who watched this and who participated today. You are part of the Wordfence community, and we're really glad that you're a part of that. And thank you to Scott and Ram and Chloe, because they are part of my community and part of what makes working at Wordfence so much fun. And just another reminder, if you guys want to join us and help make WordPress more secure and have a great time doing it, we are hiring. Go apply. Don't be afraid. Don't have, what is it, imposter syndrome.
I believe in you.
Very welcoming. We believe in you. Exactly. And with that note, we are at the top of the hour, so we're going to say goodbye. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next time on Wordfence Office Hours. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.